Hey everyone, we'll go live here in just a second. Wait just a minute for some people to come in. Been a while since we've gone live. I figure by the time this video uploads and processes and all that, that's going to be a half hour wasted with pertinent information as things are fast moving. A lot of people are live streaming, so I appreciate your attention. So we're going to look at Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, XRP, and some other names, and then I'll check in with you all. I'm not going to stay live for too long as I'm starving, but I will look at some of the tickers you want to look at, some of the coins you want to look at once I run through my normal routine here. And of course, we'll start on the longer term time frames and zoom in from there. And I actually did some trading of Bitcoin today. It's been a while. And I'll go over that in the short term. And honestly, my interest in trading Bitcoin today was sparked by a member pointing out that at right now, a $50 move is over 1% in Bitcoin. And that's the kind of psychology we need to remember. Whereas the price drops, it takes a much smaller move in terms of dollar movement for significant gains. So knowing that, a $50 move is 1%, I said, all right, I'll play this 5-minute move. And I'll point that out in just a second. There's going to be a discount on courses tomorrow. Check out the videos tomorrow. We'll release those codes for Black Friday, and it'll run tomorrow through Sunday. All right, there's enough people. Let's go. So Bitcoin bear break on the daily time frame, obviously. We had a fake out here. And again, we have to remember to not give the bulls any benefit of the doubt while we are in this very clear downtrend with a lack of support levels. So while we had the multiple inside bars break bullish, the last video that I did was on this 4-hour time frame, and I was highlighting even if we get a bull break on this 4-hour time frame, the exponential resistance is right there. So I'm not going to be making a bull entry on that break. So we got the bull break. It was a very quick fake out. And if we zoom in on the shorter term time frames, it was a very quick bull spike that was erased instantly. Big upper wick, and just like that, lower highs and lower lows right after it. That was the big red flag, and we dropped down to obviously break support. So the bears are in complete control at this point. Again, regarding long-term positions, I do not like just scaling in long-term. If you're scaling in, have it be for a short-term oversold bounce and have a short-term horizon and wait for longer-term trends so you're not catching a falling knife. And longer-term trends for me, I have no interest in short-term trading anything more than quick flips until the daily trend changes at a bare minimum. And if you want to be really patient and really responsible as a bull, you're waiting for the weekly trend to change, and that's just not going to happen anytime soon. Any bounce on the weekly time frame under 6,540 is a lower high. So again, establish a game plan, but I just don't like averaging down and scaling in because we can absolutely see Bitcoin at 4,000 or 3,000 or 2,000. Again, it's all based on short-term sentiment, and fear can be a significant thing. And right now the stock market is showing a lot of fear as well. So there's fear out there in markets, and this speculative cryptocurrency is probably not a place where we're going to see investors want to hold on to things. So the short-term bounce that's playing out right now, I played a 5-minute oversold bounce earlier this move, and it was this little higher low and bull break that I entered on a market order. This is when one of our members reminded us that, a $50 move is a 1% bull break. So I locked it in very quickly into bull strength and then a little bit here on this bear break and exited all. And then I just re-entered a position and I started scaling in to the 5-minute extreme conditions and the volume climax. And my first order filled under 4,700. The average was the only fill that I got was 4,690. And I'm just putting that at break even. It was only a 10% fill and I would have staggered in. It was only because obviously the hourly is extreme. But when you see the 5-minute giving us volume climax signs and an extreme dump, that's why I was starting to scale in, and I was doing it very slowly. Again, I only filled a 10% position, but at this point, it's some pretty decent short-term gains, up about $100. So I'm setting that at break even, and worst case scenario, absolutely nothing happens. Best case scenario, this is the bottom for now, and we see significant follow through on a bounce. And because it's such a small position, I do want to see it follow through for it to be, a day maker. I would need to see a $300 move. So going to let that one ride. But other than that, it's the 15-minute time frame that we're watching right now. Because for Bitcoin, it's been very clear lower highs. 51.68 was a resistance level, then 51.35, then 50.40, and here we are setting just another 15-minute lower high. So until the 15-minute trend changes, the bulls have absolutely no momentum and no follow-through going for them. 15-minute trend change is the absolute bare minimum for any kind of bounce to follow through. We will then zoom out to the hourly and look for an hourly lower high. So again, it's one time frame at a time. Have to change the 5-minute trend, which we certainly already did. Now we have to change the 15-minute trend, which we have not done yet. Then we'll have to change the hourly. Then we'll have to change the 4-hour. So go one time frame at a time. And just remember, the bulls have to prove it to us. And right now they are not proving anything. And we can always see lower highs and lower lows. The RSI levels are not meaning anything to us right now because we're at extremes and because there is a lack of any support nearby. So pretty much everything, aside from some of these names which we're going to look at, like XRP, but everything that doesn't have any support is a falling knife. Bitcoin right now is a falling knife. There's no doubt about that. 46.70 is support, the low that we just saw. Next level is 45.61 and then 41.50. Again, lack of support. RSI levels are getting extreme. RSI alone is absolutely not enough to be interested in making any entries. We do have some high volume. This 4-hour time frame is extended down. The difference between the last dump is the last dump was more extreme. It took 2 candlesticks to see that significant dump. And let's just look at percentage drops. In those 3, let's call it 4 candlesticks, we dropped down 16%. And here we are on this most recent drop. And now it's not wanting to give me, there we go, 17%. So it's not as fast. The percentage drop is the same, but it's taking twice as long in terms of time to get there down to those levels. So we are looking for a short-term bounce, but until we change that 15-minute trend, bulls don't prove anything. So we'll check back in on Bitcoin before we wrap it up here, but now let's go down the line. Ethereum, clear bear break. Ethereum and Litecoin are falling knives. I know I just said that, but we have to remind ourselves RSI means nothing. We have extreme dumps with absolutely no support nearby. The next level that we're looking at, let's see, we're down at 145. So I'm looking down at the next level, 130.26. And after 130.26, we're looking down at 100. So again, we can absolutely see Ethereum double digits again. And it's not going to happen anytime soon, in my opinion, in terms of breaking $100. But a month from now, we could be looking at double-digit Ethereum. Again, we can always get more extreme, both to the upside, as we saw in 2017, and now to the downside, as those, value doesn't mean anything. Emotions and hype and euphoria and fear and greed, that's what determines, what the current value is. And as we know, fundamentals can go to the wayside, and more so with stocks. Even with stocks, things get extreme and they have actual physical numbers that people point to. So for now on Ethereum, we're looking at the same 15-minute downtrend. Clear lower highs, 153.66. Last lower high is 148.44. Bulls have to change this 15-minute trend to do anything. If they do, we zoom out to the hourly. We'll just look for an hourly test of exponential resistance. If we can change that 15-minute trend, the 4-hour time frame is extended just like Bitcoin. Increasing bear volume is exactly what the bears want to see and the last thing that the bulls want to see. So again, one time frame at a time. Have we changed the trend on the 5-minute time frame? No. We saw a bounce straight from the lows, V-shaped recovery, but until we get that 5-minute higher low and higher high, there's no trend change going on. So let's see if Bitcoin even changed that 5-minute trend, and it didn't. So Bitcoin was just a V-shaped bounce, and here we go down again, have to form this 15-minute higher low. We just failed on the last attempt. We had a solid bounce, $200 almost, but it faded right back down to a lower low, and here are the bears making their another attempt just to fade right back down to the lower lows. So 15-minute time frame, same for clarity on ETH. LTC with the all-out dump. LTC down at $35. Next support level, $33.56. After $33.56, we're looking down at 19.08. So $33.56 is a key level. 15-minute lower highs, same as everybody else, $36.96, $36.35. And another thing that waiting for these trend changes does, if you want to be patient, is it allows you clear stop levels to use on these trade attempts. So when you're trying to catch the falling knife, there's no support nearby, where at least in this instance, we have supports of these 15-minute higher lows that are attempting to form and give you something to base stop losses off of or to establish your trade game plan around. So looking like these 15-minute time frames might just drop straight to lower lows if they change the trend That's step number one on any bounce following through. XRP, so we absolutely have to talk about XRP and the fact that it is holding up so much better than everybody else. That is a fact at this point. And it's alluding to the potential that on any correlation, it favors the bulls. So again, there's correlations with Bitcoin where the bulls are favored or the bears are favored. We just looked at the last video I did where NEO USD, we'll check in on NEO, was clearly bearishly correlated to Bitcoin. So we can say if Bitcoin breaks bearish, NEO is going to get crushed. Whereas this correlation favors the bulls. So if Bitcoin gets any follow through on a bounce, XRP is likely to significantly follow through. So looking at the daily time frame, we bounced, we set a lower high compared to this resistance of 535. Not surprising that we were unable to break that resistance after such a significant bounce, but now we have an equilibrium on the XRP daily chart. We have the high, low of the dump, lower high, and now we're looking for a higher low to form. Bulls would love it if the higher low is 466, but we need a little bit more follow through on the hourly in order to be confident that that support level, and actually it's the 4 hour that has the clarity. So we need follow through on the 4 hour time frame in order to be confident the daily higher low has been established. Look at this double low, 465, 466, and the bulls need a 4 hour higher low and then a bull break of 509. And if they can pull that off, it will be a significant shift in momentum that will have us saying, all right, our daily higher low has been established and the equilibrium range is going to continue to tighten. So again, we're positioned really well where if we get a Bitcoin bounce that has some actual follow through behind it and say, we bounce on the 4 hour time frame and look for a lower high to form, maybe get back to 5,000. If that occurs, we're going to look for XRP to make its way back up towards and potentially over that resistance of 509. So it's important to note when things are more bullish or more bearish correlated to SPY. That was just stocks taking over my brain. I do it every day with the stock market. I watch to see which individual names have a bearish lean or a bullish lean versus the standard, the S&P 500, and we have to do the same thing in Bitcoin, which allowed us to see that NEO weakness and is allowing us to see this XRP strength. Also want to point out Link USD. Someone commented on a recent YouTube video about Link USD, and it's worth paying attention to because the trend clearly changed on the weekly time frame. And I look at this pattern and I say, all right, that's exactly like Bitcoin on the weekly chart, but the trend changed. We had an equilibrium with a very tight range and a bull break, sideways trading, continuation. The bottom line is we're still in a weekly uptrend, and anything over 303 maintains a higher low. This is Link USD. So we pulled back significantly from the high, no doubt about that, but the weekly uptrend is still intact. And at this point, the daily time frame, we're looking to see a shift in the daily trend to indicate the weekly higher low has been established. So it's a potential bottom fishing play with this support the closer we get towards it. And let's see if we can get a weekly higher low maintaining this uptrend as the bulls try and shift momentum. We had clear resistance. Let's see, it was up at 6.4. So we broke to the highest price that we had seen since back in February. That's obviously very notable. Highest price in 9 months. And now let's see if the bulls can get a good entry opportunity with 303 as a potential stop. And this is another one where you need to watch what's the correlation like to Bitcoin. And we can see on the 15-minute time frame and the 4 hour chart, it's very, very correlated right now. But as far as the weekly time frame is concerned, if Bitcoin starts to bounce, we will look for the potential of a weekly higher low forming. So the 15-minute downtrend here, 438, anything under that's just a lower high. Bulls have lots of proving to do. Bitcoin bulls trying to shift that 15-minute trend. Let's see if Bitcoin bulls can break 48.39 here on Coinbase, which would give us a 15-minute higher low and higher high. If that occurs, I then zoom out to the hourly and I say, all right, on the hourly, anything under 50.40 is still just a lower high as well. So key resistance test occurring on Bitcoin. Let's look at NEO. So NEO was clearly weaker than Bitcoin a couple days ago on this daily chart. And you can see we had a clear move similar to Bitcoin, but then we just dropped down to lower lows. We didn't have any inside bars. It was just lower highs and lower lows each day. Then we finally had one inside bar and a clear bear break. As soon as we broke 1224, that's your bear signal. We dumped all the way down to 1005, a 20% drop. And it was due to the lack of any support, which is why I liked that bearish setup. And as soon as we saw that break, again, 1319 was support. And we have no support after that. You have to go to different exchanges to find support levels, but that doesn't even matter at this point. The bear break occurred. The bears got their gains and follow through. And at this point, we're looking for a bounce attempt similar. Look at all that bear volume. But similar to Bitcoin on the 4-hour time frame, we're watching for the 15-minute trend to change. So again, it's very correlated to Bitcoin in the short term. You can see this 15-minute chart looks very similar, as does the 4-hour chart, but it was just weaker the entire time it attempted to bounce, meaning the entire time Bitcoin attempted to bounce. So it was an ideal short back down for those bears. So at this point, if you are trading this market, you are either in oversold bounce positions with stop losses set, you are bearish and comfortable using longer term time frames and knowing that we're still in an hourly downtrend, we're still even, a significant bounce is still going to set a 4-hour lower high on Bitcoin. Or if you are cash, you are patiently waiting for long-term bullish trend changes on the daily and weekly time frame, or you are waiting for a 4-hour lower high and exponential resistance test to enter bearish again. So always establish your game plan. I always suggest writing it down, verbalizing it, getting out of your head to make it more legitimate and more real. It's much easier to go against a trade game plan that you set and let your emotions take over if you're just talking back and forth to yourself in your head with those voices, as opposed to looking down, seeing it visually on paper. You might get the itch, maybe I should enter now, and you look down and say, nope, that's not what I intended. It's right there written in front of me. So establish what your game plan is. Are you playing bullish? Are you playing bearish? Where's your stop levels? Where are you going to be looking to make a re-entry as a bear? Always planning to be doing in this market. 15-minute time frame did not get a bull break on Bitcoin just yet. Things are tightening up. Exponential resistance on the 15-minute time frame. And we're going to be watching for exponential bull crosses on these moving averages. 5-minute time frame, still no bull cross, the entire pullback. So lots of little things to be looking for the bulls to prove follow through to us. And the number one is we need bull volume, which we don't have at this point. So until we get some bull volume and until we get some trend changes, bears have absolute complete control. Although I would be surprised if our short-term temporary bottom is not set for the next couple hours at least. But I'll be a lot more confident in saying that if we can break 48.40 here. So let's look at some other names here. What do you want to look at? Now I have to sit and wait for the time delay. XLM. I thought I had XLM up there. Let's look on Bitfenix. So XLM on Bitfenix, we had a clear lower high set on the daily. And actually, I want to compare this to Binance real quick. Binance has a lot more wick action going on, as does Bittrex. So we're going to go with Bitfenix, but just be aware that there's some other action going on those exchanges with more significant wicks. But at this point, first thing I'm going to do is look to see, does the 4-hour time frame look like Bitcoin? And right off the bat, I can say it's stronger than Bitcoin. So the correlation is favoring the XLM bulls. We have a base of support attempting to be established. It's still a lower high pattern. If we look at the hourly time frame, it shows things tightening up. And essentially, it's an equilibrium. Although we did just break bearish, we didn't get any follow through. So at this point, we can say the bulls are clearly establishing support at their base down here at 225. We have a favorable correlation to Bitcoin currently ongoing, and we have to see an hourly break of the lower high pattern. So 2377 is key resistance, then it's down to 2345, and right now we're topping out at a lower high, potentially 2328. So until we break the hourly lower high pattern, we're not going to see any follow through. It's very choppy because we did break the hourly lower high pattern but didn't get any follow through. And the bottom line is we have to see this support level hold and those hourly lower highs break in order to get any kind of follow through on XLM. But we can say for sure that we are holding up better than Bitcoin is at this point. And just checking in on the 15-minute time frame, you can see that as well. Equilibrium, and we didn't drop down to those lower lows that Bitcoin was just dropping to. So it's worth keeping an eye on any individual name that has a bullish correlation to Bitcoin, a bullish favorable correlation, because when Bitcoin does bounce, we know Bitcoin's going to bounce eventually. I mean, the daily chart the last week has dropped very significant percentages. And let's see, it's over, at this point, we're talking 25% or so in the last 7 days of trading. So we know there's going to be short-term bounces, and when those bounces get some follow-through on these longer-term timeframes for Bitcoin, like the hourly or the 4-hour, names like XRP and XLM will likely see the most benefit, and that's because they are holding up much better. So let's look at the daily one more time. It's a little bit choppy on XLM. At this point, I would be watching the high of the bull move, the low of the dump. Our lower high has been set, and here's the bulls trying for their higher low. And they're building that base of support, and we have to see this support level hold 225 to give us that higher low, change that hourly trend, and we'll be a lot more confident the daily higher low has been established. And we'll just look for this range to continue to tighten on the daily time frame, likely into next week unless fireworks continue here. But I would anticipate, just like we saw on Bitcoin yesterday or on the last dump, and things slowed down and things evened out for a few days, I would anticipate that to happen again. And in that scenario, we would look for XLM to tighten up its daily equilibrium. So still need that hourly trend change for XLM to give us the daily higher low, but it is a decent setup right now for these bulls to see this tightening pattern. And on the weekly time frame, you can see we're tight here as well. XLM is going to get very interesting to start the new year once this weekly tightening pattern breaks. But bulls need to show up and shift that momentum to give us this weekly higher low. BTC shorts. So BTC shorts, we saw that big bull move on, or I should say the big increase in shorts on the last dump that we had. And we saw another spike today, but it's clear that shorts are covering, and that's not surprising, as I would certainly be covering as well, as we are extremely extended to the downside. But we're going to look for, let's see, continue covering on the 4-hour time frame. And at this point, I mean, we have a 4-hour equilibrium forming. That's not really going to mean much because these, patterns don't really tell us a whole lot on the shorts chart. All I am looking for on the shorts chart is, are the shorts high? Are the shorts covering? And right now we can see some shorts are covering. And if we see a drop below 22,100 shorts, I would anticipate that the bounce for Bitcoin is going to get a little bit more real on the hourly and the 4-hour time frame, getting some of that follow through. So we want to see continued closing, which tells us a temporary bottom would be in. And again, the top here on the shorts that was hit. Let's see when that shorts recent top was hit. That was at November 14th at 21 and 23. And we check where Bitcoin was at that point. What was that date again? November 14th. So November 14th at 21 and 23 is when we were right about here. So the bounce had already started and actually didn't indicate the bottom for Bitcoin. We did drop to one more leg down. So that's interesting to note. So honestly, the shorts chart where we have right now, I would look at that chart and say, man, nothing glaring is standing out to me. I'm probably not going to get any information that I can use off of that shorts chart with where we're standing. If shorts were still extremely high and nobody was covering, I'd say, all right, the shorts are getting cocky. We could potentially see a little short-term short squeeze. But seeing that shorts have already covered on the 4-hour time frame and they're starting to pull back, that tells me that any kind of short squeeze-like move is not likely to happen. BTG. So yeah, everybody's watching BTG in these longs. Something is up with these longs. Again, just to look at it again, weekly time frame continues to go up. And the daily chart, we're looking at a tightening range here, supports down at 25, resistance of 28.13, and the bull's looking for a higher low compared to 25. I would look at this chart, BTG, you look at this chart and you would say, all right, it's bouncing, but it's no different than Link that we just looked at, or some of these other names. It's only that longs chart that makes you think, what is going on behind the scenes on BTG? But at this point, I personally would never get into a chart just because the longs on one exchange are really, really high. I would have to see price action favorable for me to want to be in a position. And right now, as long as 28.13 is resistance, well, the bulls aren't going anywhere in terms of changing the trend. So it's worth keeping an eye on because of those longs, but price action is always king. That's the number one truth. If there's one thing in this cryptocurrency market that we're currently seeing with all this childish back and forth and I'm going to dump these coins and all that going on, price action is always the truth. The price action in this very moment, there's no denying it. We know what it is, and that's the most important factor on all of our decisions. ADA. I personally don't think you can use previous charts for Bitcoin for comparisons. It's nice to look at and say, yes, we recovered after these significant pullbacks, but in my opinion, things are so much different than any other time in the history of Bitcoin, and that's because of the massive awakening that occurred in 2017 with the huge influxes of users and traders, and I just don't think that you compare times where that was not the case. It was never the case until 2017. So in my opinion, things are different because of that fact. ADA, let's see, we'll do... I guess we'll remain consistent using dollars. And I use the dollars, ADA USD, because it allows me to instantly compare it to Bitcoin. So I can see the daily chart drop down just like Bitcoin, the 4-hour chart, very correlated to Bitcoin, though we do have an inside bar to be watching, which tells me the hourly is in equilibrium. So we've got our low, high of the bounce, higher low just held support, and we're looking at some resistance of 536. So must hold supports, 511 and 507, and the bulls need a break of 548 for any kind of bounce to get going. So it's very similar to Bitcoin. It's slightly more bullish because we do have that hourly higher low rather than dropping to lower lows, but it's still a clear downtrend with exponential resistance rejecting the price and the bulls struggling to get any kind of follow through on this bounce. So I can look at it and say slightly more bullish than Bitcoin, but still very correlated to it. And as far as the daily chart goes, or I should say the weekly chart, lack of any support. So many of these altcoins are breaking supports with nothing nearby from previous trading history. So black dirt breakdown, falling knife, opposite of blue sky breakout. Feel free to spread that around. Haven't trademarked it yet. But yeah, it's significantly dropping down to lower lows. ONT. Weekly support of 1028 is a key level that's approaching. If 1028 breaks, which is being tested right now, that's our all-time low down here. 98.7 is actually the next level. But you can see, again, a lack of supports nearby. 4-hour time frame. Bounce trying to play out. It's a bear flag at this point, but we can certainly say it's stronger than Bitcoin because Bitcoin is not seeing any kind of bounce attempt like we're seeing right now on ONT. So key support short term, 112 and 111.1, and resistance is up at 121. We can absolutely see another leg down here because it is a bear flag, but I would expect some recovery if Bitcoin can recover. But again, Bitcoin 15-minute did not get that break of resistance, so still just sideways trading. So as far as ONT goes, potential for a 4-hour bear flag. And if Bitcoin drops down to lower lows, we can absolutely see ONT drop down as well, but we do at least have a support level established that the bulls are attempting to maintain, which we did just drop right down to and test and hold, but we are fading back down towards that level yet again. So names like this need to be very cautious with a lack of any weekly support. Things could get ugly. It is absolutely a bear's market. There's a lot of bears making a lot of money in this market right now. And again, you know, congrats to the bears that are doing so, taking advantage of the market that is given to us. So I'm going to wrap it up here. I need to get some food. I appreciate you all tuning in. One last check-in on Bitcoin. 15-minute inside bar forming. No trend change yet. If we can't break 48.40, bulls are not going anywhere. That's step number one for any kind of bounce to follow through, 48.40. And then it's 50.40, $5,040 as the next key resistance after that, as the daily chart is a waterfall on Bitcoin, and there is a lot of bearish sentiment in the space right now. Volume significant, and keep your eyes on the shorter term time frames and zoom them out to longer term after that. do some good things out there. Crypto space can be depressing. Don't get too beat up about it. There's always more to learn. There's always more markets to learn. And we'll be back tomorrow. I appreciate you watching. Have a good rest of your night.